Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Happy fall to all of those who celebrate. Today is the 22nd of September, so it's officially the first day of fall, and I'm very excited to share with you all of the things that I have made so far in September. It's been a bit of a busy month for our family. We had some family in from out of state for a week, and school has started for both of my kids, so there's been a lot going on, but I have managed to make a couple of sewing projects, and I have a knitting project in progress that I want to show you. I've been making a point to paint and to read, and so this is just going to be a bit of a chatty catch-up on mostly sewing, all of the things that I have sewn in September. So hopefully you guys are all doing really well. I hope that the leaves are starting to change around you and there's a fresh, crisp breeze blowing. I hope you've got something cozy to drink, and I'm just going to jump right in. So first up, I believe in my fall sewing plans video, I mentioned this project. One of the stash fabrics that I had intended to use was a black twill. It's called a Resilisoft cotton twill from Nick of Time Textiles, and it is quite soft. I think it's a cotton blend, but I'm not sure of the exact composition of the fabric. And if I had to guess the weight, I would say 9.5, 10 ounce is what it feels like to me. And my plan that I shared with you in my fall sewing plans video was that I wanted to make a curved leg elastic waist pair of pants. And I have done just that. So I mentioned that I was debating between two patterns, the fray pants and the potting pants. Spoiler alert, I have made both patterns, but what I chose to use the black twill for were indeed the curved leg view of the fray pants. So I will hold them up here, and I know they're black, and I know that you're probably not going to be able to see them, so I will also insert some footage close up of the details of the pants as well as of me wearing them. But they're really lovely elastic waist pleated pant with slash pockets and a tapered leg. I love this fabric for these pants specifically. I think the drape is really nice and they are quite soft, but they also feel, because it's a little bit of a heavier twill, they feel appropriate for fall. And yes, as I said, I will put in some footage of me wearing them, and I can also show you some of the details. This is a really nice pattern, and the finishes are really nice on the pockets. And for the fray pants, I make a size 4, which is pretty typical for me across pattern designers. I'm usually around a US 4. And so that is what I did. And I haven't made any modifications here to the pattern at all. I haven't adjusted the length. So when you look at me wearing these, maybe it will be helpful to know that I'm about 5'7", and I really like where these pants finish on me. They are a slightly cropped pant, but I think that that works really well for this kind of curved leg shape. I think if they were much longer, you would kind of lose the curved effect of the pant. And they're probably about, I would say, a good mid-rise. They're not super high-waisted. And depending on how tight you make your waistband elastic, there is enough room in the rise that you could wear them higher up, but I typically wear them around like belly button height. And yeah, they're incredibly comfortable. I've made many pairs of the fray pants pattern. I think it's my favorite elastic waist pants pattern at the moment and has been for a while. So yes, I'm very pleased to have a black pair. I feel like that's such a classic pant to have, and for whatever reason I often neglect making black pants. Maybe it's just not as exciting to cut or sew, maybe, I don't know. But I definitely will get loads of wear out of these, and I'm very pleased with the fabric. Again, I'm not sure of the exact composition, and when I went to Nick of Time Textiles website to check, it does say cotton blend, so I'm not entirely sure. I think that they have a blue color up. When I purchased the fabric, they had black and gray, and I did purchase both black and gray. So I have another make to show you in a few moments using the same fabric in a different color, which I do feel has a slightly different texture to it, which is interesting. But yes, I'm very pleased with my fray pants in the curved view with my cotton twill Resilla soft fabric, and basically one of those makes where it works out exactly how you wanted it to, so off to a good start. And actually, I had enough of the twill fabric left over to make a top to go with the pants, and I was really excited about that. And initially, I thought I would just use the other pattern by Emily Lightly. She did the fray pants, and she recently released kind of a raglan style lightweight jacket pattern that I tested, and I thought, oh, that would be so cool. I could have a matching set of both of her patterns together. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough fabric. I think because that pattern it's got like a bit of a generous fit, and it has a two-piece sleeve as well as a complete front facing that goes like up one side all the way around and down the other. So I wasn't able to squeeze all of those pattern pieces onto the fabric that I had, but I knew I had enough for a top. So I went through my pattern stash and I found the Modern Sewing Company overshirt pattern, which is kind of a lightweight shirt or jacket depending on the fabric that you use, and it has quite a cropped fit. And so I thought with the curved pant, a cropped jacket would look very nice, but also it would help me with using up the rest of this twill fabric, and it did just fit. I was really pleased. I wasn't forced to do any weird like mismatching of pattern pieces, like everything just fit, so that was really great. And I have a very lovely shirt, jacket, shacket in the same fabric. And again, I know it's black and that's hard to see, but it has a classic construction where you have a collar stand and a top collar piece. It has a button band, as well as on the back you do have a yoke and a little hanging loop. And the yoke is two pieces, so you do the burrito method so that there's no exposed seams on the inside of the yoke, which I really enjoy. It has these really generous pockets on the bottom, and again, I'll put some footage in of me wearing it so you can see more clearly. I know it can be difficult to see details on black garments. I did modify the pocket shape slightly. The pattern suggests generous pockets, but I made mine bigger. And I also didn't include, there's a little coin pocket piece that goes inside of one of the bigger pockets, and I skipped that because I felt when I made the two bottom patch pockets larger, the coin pocket shape just proportionally looked a little bit odd, so I kept that out. And yeah, it has the like traditional sleeve plackets, and again, I'll put pictures in. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see, but I really love this shirt jacket pattern for a couple of reasons. I mentioned the burrito construction of the back yoke, where you have two pieces and then you basically put the whole jacket inside of the yoke to sew the shoulders together, and then you pull everything out through one side of the yoke, and that just makes like a really clean finish on the inside. The seam finish on the side of the jacket as well as on the sleeve, everything is felled. So on the interior of the jacket, it's really clean and sturdy. And for something that is going to be a jacket that gets taken on and off a lot and gets worn possibly in, higher repetition than other things, because hopefully you're going to get a lot of wear out of it. I really appreciate when all of the seams are fully enclosed, because it means that the garment is going to stand the test of time. And I'm very pleased to have a little cropped kind of lightweight fall jacket. I love how it looks together with the fray pants. I think it's a really modern aesthetic and silhouette, and it feels very true to me. I feel like myself when I'm wearing this combination. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to wear throughout the fall, and I'm excited to try layering the black with different colors too. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and hand knit accessories as it gets a little bit cooler. So a really successful, like kind of involved project to make both of them. And I think it took maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks sewing on and off around busy life to complete the set. But I'm very, very happy with it, and it feels perfect for this time of year. Okay, so I mentioned that when I purchased the Resilisoft twill from Nick of Time Textiles, I also purchased it in gray. And in the past, I believe I made a video about it. I made a pair of the wide leg view pants of the fray pants with that twill fabric. And I think they turned out really well. And I think because it is a lighter color and the fabric itself has a little bit of a different texture to it, they feel like a traditional like pleated pant fabric. Whereas I feel that black, it is soft, but it does feel like more of a jacket to me. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but the gray fabric feels a bit more like trousers. And I had also mentioned that I wanted to try the potting pants pattern. So this is a relatively new to me pattern by an indie pattern designer. Her storefront is Allotment Clothing, and I found her on Instagram. She sells her patterns on Etsy currently. And recently when I was on Etsy looking for something else, actually it popped up that the potting pants pattern was on sale. So I decided to purchase it, and I printed it at home and taped everything together, and I had cut it out and sewn it within like 2 days. So it went really quickly. It was a really fun project, and it was a shape and style of pant that I haven't made before. It's very popular right now, the curved kind of two-piece leg, or I guess it's 3 pieces, where there's a side panel that creates that curved shape. So you have the front piece and the back of the leg, and then what creates that curved, slightly tapered barrel shape is that side panel that curves around to the front bottom of the leg. And as I said, I used my gray twill fabric to sew these up. I really enjoyed it. I did find that the instructions were quite sparse, and she only has a couple of patterns released, so I understand that she's doing this on her own and she's relatively new to it as far as I can tell. I don't know her personal history, but design-wise, I think they're very good, and the finishes are good. I just think that if you're like an absolute beginner, you might benefit from trying a pant like the fray pants first, where there are really detailed, articulate instructions with illustrations and everything is really spelled out for you, because there were a couple steps of like while I was making the potting pants where I did things that I had learned from making the fray pants that weren't in the instructions for the potting pants. So small details, you could definitely make them. If you've made pants before, even if you haven't, you could figure it out. But I just did want to note that the instructions are quite sparse in comparison to some other patterns that I've tried. All of that to say, I really like the pants. And I think the shape, while it is a bit trendy right now, does work well for my body and my proportions. I do like a tapered, slightly cropped leg pant. I knew that from experience before making this pattern. And I think it's a really great dupe of the Le Bon Shop Arc pants. So if you've had your eye on the Arc pants or other similar designs and you want to try making them yourself, I do think the potting pants pattern is very successful. I'm currently wearing mine actually today, so I can try to show you the top, but I don't know how much you'll be able to see. They have this really nice, maybe I'll stand on the couch. I don't know if you can see it. So the top has this like slash pocket here, and then this side panel curves out and down to the bottom. Obviously I will insert some clips of me wearing the pants, and I'll show some like close-up top-down shots of what I'm talking about with those 3 leg panels, but I really like these. I think if you wanted a comparison of the fray pants and the potting pants, I would say that the potting pants overall have a wider leg, and while they do have that tapered shape, it's not as if they're wide and then tapered to a similar point. Like I think the leg width all the way down is wider than the fray pants. Another feature of the potting pants that's interesting is that the bottom of the legs, the hem, is not just your traditional hem where you fold it up twice and sew it down. There's a separate facing piece that you sew and then flip to the inside of the leg, and that just creates kind of a more substantial hem. It's heavier because there's more fabric, and it also helps to hold that shape. So I think that if you didn't use the facing piece, that bottom would collapse a bit more and the curve wouldn't be as defined. But I do really like the way that the hem falls because of the extra weight of the facing. And it's something that I would be interested in trying in other pants again. I know that in the past, I've made pants that ended up a little bit too short and I still had to hem them. And now I know that I could kind of draft a facing piece, sew it right sides together, flip it to the inside and sew it down, and then I wouldn't lose any of the length. So I learned something new, which is really fun. It's always good to learn something new. And yeah, as far as sizing goes, I think that the potting pants run a bit oversized. So my measurements put me at a small on their size chart, and I wanted to try making them without any modifications, just based on the recommended size, because I like to do that when I'm making a brand new to me pattern from a designer that's new to me. So I made the recommended size being the small, and I will say that they are quite generous. The amount of fabric around the waistband that is gathered is quite a lot, because you start with quite a wide pant and then the elastic waistband brings everything together, and there's quite a bit of volume of fabric around that waistband. This is probably also more evident because I used a twill, probably 9-10 ounce fabric, right? If I had used like a 5 or 6 ounce linen, I probably wouldn't notice the bulk at the waistband as much, but just something to consider. I do think that there was plenty of room where I could easily cut out the extra small. Again, I'm normally like a 4 and I'm 5'7", so if you're looking for size comparisons. I've also seen other people post about having sewn these pants up and having sized down. So check the final waist and hip measurements. You probably have enough room to go down a size. And honestly, I'm not upset that I didn't, because my intention going into making these was to have like a loose, wide leg, relaxed pant. I've got plenty of fitted pants, and I like experimenting with different shapes and silhouettes. And so I think a wider pant can be really fun, especially when it's got a little bit of a taper to it. I'm really pleased with this pattern. Do I think that I will size down in the future? Possibly. I think depending on material, because initially when I had in mind this pattern, I was thinking about denim. And obviously if I use like a lightweight denim, it wouldn't matter as much, but I was thinking like a 12 ounce denim, 10, 12 ounce. And if I did that, I might go down in size to the extra small, because there's so much bulk at the top when you gather all of that into the waistband, maybe even if with like a canvas or something. But I think if you're using a lighter weight fabric, having a wider leg is totally fine because there's not as much bulk. Anyway, I'm currently drinking my favorite sparkling water flavor, the Spindrift grapefruit. Can't find a better one. It's the absolute best. Okay, so yeah, those are the 3 sewing projects that I completed in September. I know September is not quite yet over. However, I don't have plans to start and finish a project this week. So this will be my completed sewing projects in September. And I do also have a knitting project to share with you that is currently in progress, but I've made good progress on. So I will quickly share that with you as well. Okay, so this is my current knitting work in progress. And I've just popped it on the hanger, so hopefully you can see it a little better. So this is the Earth pullover by Ozetta. And as you can see, I have finished the collar and the body, and I've just begun my first sleeve. And the yarn that I'm using is Cascade BFL in this lovely chocolate brown color, which is going to be so fun for fall. And I've made the earth pullover before, doing as recommended. There's like a twisted rib neckline and hem and cuffs. This time I decided to just do a 1x1 rib at the collar and hem and cuffs. And I also made the choice to use smaller needles both for the body and the ribbing. So the pattern recommends a US 8 for the body, and I chose to use a 7. And then it also recommends that you do the ribbing in, gosh, was it a 7 or an 8? Either way, it was large. It wasn't significantly smaller, and I chose to use a 5 for the collar and a 6 for the hem and the cuffs. I've noticed before that with Ozetta patterns, the collars can kind of be a bit wide and loose, and so I knew that I wanted to use a smaller needle so that it sat a little bit closer at my neck. And also with the cuffs and the hem, they often don't cinch in at all. They just kind of go straight down at the same width and of the body and the sleeve, if that makes sense. And while I don't mind that look, I have found that, and maybe I knit a bit loosely because I typically need to go down a needle size, the gauge is often quite loose when I knit the recommended needles, and when you have a loose ribbing, in my opinion, it doesn't look as nice. So I decided to use smaller needles on the ribbing so it kind of like comes together, and I know it will relax with blocking. It's not going to be a dramatic cinch at the bottom of the sweater. It will relax out and look nice. But I didn't want it to be like floppy, if that makes sense. And I've had experience before with generally the gauge and the proportion being like really big and loose and drapey. And I want this one to be a little bit slimmer, if that makes sense. So I'm knitting a size small, and I'm actually really pleased with how the neck fits. I can pop it on quickly and show you. Okay, so this is going to look a little bit silly because I don't have my arm through this sleeve. But I think you can see this arm is on. The collar is sitting like really nicely. And I do know that with blocking, it will loosen and stretch a little bit. But as I said, in the past, I've had experience with crew neck collars being really wide and kind of going quite deep. And so while I know this will relax a little bit, it's closer to the neck, which is what I wanted. And you can see it's a drop shoulder. So the sleeve will start about here. And yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I really like this color. I think it's going to be great for fall, and it's going to layer really well with neutrals as well as like pops of red. And so I'm really excited about my brown earth pullover with slight modifications. And if you're curious, I purchased the brown yarn from Little Knits, which is based in Seattle, but I think they're an online only shop. And I managed to get something like 10 skeins for like $50. So they were having a big sale. Everything was half off, and I have quite a bit of that brown BFL yarn. So I'm also working on a shawl with the same yarn, and yeah, it's definitely a good chocolate brown for fall is nothing new, but I'm excited about it. Should I keep going? I feel like I've been chatting for a while. How about, okay, I'll end it quickly with a couple of book pickups. I threw some book pickups at the end of another video, and you guys seem to also be avid readers, so I'll just show you quickly a few books that I've picked up recently. I'm going to start first with one that I'm almost done with. This is just Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, and this is an exploration into the Sackler family dynasty, and they are the family who owned the pharmaceutical company Purdue Pharma, which produced OxyContin and, kind of started the opioid crisis. So this has been a really interesting read. It's definitely a heavy read, but I think it's written really well, and it reads, it's really readable for the density of the subject and the fact that it's a nonfiction book. It reads really easily. So if you're interested in reading nonfiction or learning more about the opioid crisis in America and kind of the family that really was behind it. It's really fascinating. I also ended up watching on Hulu it's kind of like, I think it's only one series, like a mini series called Dope Sick, which is based upon a different book, but is about the same family. And so I've just kind of been living in that world, and it made me think about Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is a fictional book, but about a family in Appalachia, like mining families that were also very affected by opioid addiction. So very interesting book. And the only nonfiction I've read recently, but it did get me to pick up another of Patrick Raddenkeefe's books, which is called Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland. And I have a weakness for things set in Ireland, both fiction and nonfiction. I really enjoy reading about that part of the world. And having read now I'm almost done with Empire of Pain, I know that I like his writing. So as far as nonfiction goes, this will be my next nonfiction read. I don't know if it will be my next read. I might put a fiction in between to kind of break things up because they're quite dense texts, but I definitely recommend his writing. It's very good. So I mentioned a couple videos ago that I was reading Alice Munro's short stories. Oof. Sorry. And that is still true. I started reading Runaway, and it's good. It's not the best thing that I've ever read, but I'm enjoying reading the short stories in the book. I find that there are characters that kind of bleed into the next story, so there's some connectivity there. And I don't know, it's kind of about like everyday people and going through what they're going through. It's not, I've read a lot of short story collections. How about I say that first? And I've read a lot of short stories that are basically like slice of life. You get a view into someone's family or relationship dynamic, and difficult things happen, and just kind of people living their lives in the everyday and showing, that there is profound to the mundane, but within that like genre of short stories, I'm a big fan of like Carver, for instance. This one is, I will say it's good. I'm not done with it yet, but not like page turner, can't wait to finish it level of short story collection. So I would say this one's okay so far. And then I picked up recently, I went to Half Price Books and I picked up 2 books by Annie Proulx. So the only writing of hers that I've read so far is the Shipping News. And I don't have a copy here, but I can put a picture up. And I really enjoyed the Shipping News. It was quite dark, but it was really funny. And it made me want to read more of her writing. So I picked up 2, one of which, so this one is called Postcards. And I'm not sure why I thought it was stories. Maybe because they're postcards, like maybe it's a letter back and forth dynamic. New England farmers who must confront the 20th century and their own extinction as the family slowly disintegrates, its members struggle valiantly against the powerful forces of loneliness and necessity, seeking a sense of home and place forever lost. So it sounds like, kind of the story of a family and modernization and their kids dealing with going from a dynamic that is changing, and that kind of reminded me a little bit of the Lincoln Highway that I talked about last time, where obviously that goes a different route. I don't think this is a road trip kind of crime story, but 2 sons on a farm, and then the farm fails and they have to leave it and go figure out life. I don't know if this is going to be similar in any way. Postcards was the winner of the PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction. It's a novel, and I'm excited to read it. I also picked up one more by Annie Proulx, and this one is a brick of a book. This is huge. It is a New York Times bestseller and apparently now a National Geographic limited series. It is called Barkskins. It's a little bit intimidating to pick up a book this hefty, but I do think it's going to be worthwhile. So it says, in the late 17th century, 2 penniless young Frenchmen arrive in Canada, then known as New France. They're bound to a feudal lord for 3 years in exchange for land, and they become woodcutters' barkskins, hence the title. So it kind of tells about their lives, and then it tells the stories of their descendants over 300 years, their travels across North America, Europe, China, New Zealand. Yeah, it's just, I kind of love something like that, where you get the origin story of a family, and 300 years, we're going to see, right, where everyone from that family goes. As I said, it's quite dense. Maybe this will be a good one for kind of end of fall when it starts to get really cold and you don't want to go outside as much. In addition to sewing and knitting, I'm definitely looking to diving into some reading this season. I feel like I've gone on a little bit long today. Apologies if it was a bit of a ramble. Yeah, I hope you guys are all doing really well. And let me know what you would like to see from me in the future. If you would enjoy more like, not tutorial necessarily, but I would love to know if you enjoy watching me make a garment from start to finish, or if you prefer videos where I talk about more general things like patterns or other things around sewing and knitting in general, as opposed to one project start to finish. I would really enjoy knowing what you enjoy. That will help me create content going forward for you guys. And I think that's going to be it today. I hope that you're all doing really well, and I will chat with you very soon. Bye.